Hi, and welcome to the Quilting Life podcast with Sherry and Chelsea for Monday, July 6th, 2020.
Hi.
We're happy to be here.
Yes.
I just want to start out by saying that the new quilt on the wall this week is my All-American pattern, and you can find that in my Etsy shop. And we'll also put a link in the show notes as well. This is a fat quarter friendly quilt, and I used fabrics from our Harper's Garden collection for kind of a patriotic look. And so I'm excited that I have a quilt up on the wall this week.
Yes.
And we'll be switching them out, like we said last week, every single week. So it'll be fun. We'll have a new quilt up to talk about. So
Right. And the quilt on the table is my Harmony quilt from my new book, Labor of Love, Scrappy Quilts from the Heart of Home. And it's made with Minnick & Simpson fabrics. When I saw that Chelsea brought her All-American quilt over this morning, I thought, I'll stay in the red, white, and blue theme. And
yeah.
I had this draped over the banister in the hallway. And so I ran and brought it in and put it on the table.
It's so pretty. All right.
Okay, should we get started?
Yeah, let's get started. We have a lot of fun stuff to talk about today.
Yeah.
So
we're going to start with our new find and old favorites.
Okay, I think I'll go first because I'm really excited about this one. So Kelly from Simply Macbeth on Instagram, if you haven't seen her before, you can check her out on Instagram. She has these pre-made bindings. So they're very convenient for when you have a project and you just need the binding already made. So
that is really great.
Yeah, she has a lot of different fabrics. What I had done is I had multiple Christmas quilts and just projects just for me that I was making that weren't necessarily market quilts. And I had them all quilted and I was like, I don't have any binding made for them. And I saw that she does pre-made bindings. And I thought, you want to know what? This is perfect for me because I'm very busy right now. I can just get them, sew them on. So
right.
I think they're great. They're so cute. She has a bunch of different options.
And does she tell you what the fabric collection is when you purchase it?
So she has different
great.
fabric collection. She had a myriad of, Christmas ones that I was interested. I have more at home. I bought a whole bunch. So
fun.
And she was kind enough to send me some. So
I'm excited to look those up.
Yeah. That is the cutest thing ever.
So this is my new find, and this is called a macaron, and it's a little storage container from Fat Quarter Shop, and it came in my Sew Sampler box. And I have just thought this was when I first opened the package, I actually thought I could eat it. And I was so excited that they sent me food in the Sew Sampler box, but it's not edible. But it's great for storing anything little, buttons, pins, wonder clips, sewing machine feet, anything. Or you could put it in your purse. You could put anything in it that's little that you want to protect.
You could put change in it too.
Yeah. So, and they come in a set of 3 when you buy them. Just one came in the Sew Sampler box, but when you purchase them, they come in a set of 3 and
different colors.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's a pink and a blue and a green.
I'm gonna have to get some for Ashton.
Yeah, they're so adorable. That was my new find.
Yeah, I'm all about different storage things, so it's a plus when they're cute and tiny and can fit tiny little things.
Right.
Yeah, that's adorable.
Okay, so old favorite.
You have that one.
Yes. I decided to talk, and this was also a question that we received, so it worked out great. But my old favorite is my Rowenta Perfect Steam Iron. And this iron is life-changing. I've only had it for about a year, almost a year. It'll be a year in August, but I've been using this iron at different retreats that I went to for a few years. And every time I would go to one of those retreats where we had this iron, I would say, I'm going to buy one of those. I'm going to buy one of those. And then finally I purchased one. And I just absolutely love the way everything that I press turns out. It has just been great. And I've had bad experiences with irons before. As a quilter, you need an iron. And
you need a great iron.
And Chelsea and I live in a smaller town, about an hour away from larger cities. And so in the past, my irons have broken, and it's 120-mile round trip to get to a Target or a Walmart to get a decent iron. So this one has just been wonderful. And
there is something to be said about a good iron. When you have something that is pressed you want your blocks, everything you piece to be pressed really, really well. And so I think it's worth the purchase. I've seen yours. I think I need to invest in one. So we'll see. But yeah, there's something to be said about a good iron that will give you a good press.
Yeah. My husband kind of makes fun of it because it takes up a
very
little
large.
Space. And then my mother-in-law actually came, I don't know, a couple months ago. And that was the only thing she commented about in my sewing room was the iron, but she loves to iron. So, and she's always loved to iron. She was like just staring at my iron, like,
I don't know. So another month or so, you might find her pressing all her stuff in your sewing room.
Yeah. So, okay. So, and then before we get started, we got so many questions this time.
We're so excited.
We're really excited. And I don't even know that we'll be able to get through all of them today, but I like to share just kind of what I'm working on. And what I decided to do yesterday, last minute, 5:00 at night, was I decided I'm going to make a block every single day during the month of July. Oh, wow. And I had been organizing my rulers last week actually, I'm going to have a YouTube video on Friday all about ruler storage and organization. But while I was organizing them, I found a ruler that I had forgotten about, and it is a 4-inch log cabin ruler. And I found that ruler and I had never used it, and it's so cute. And so I decided I'm going to make one of these blocks every single day during the month of July.
Of the log cabins?
Of the 4-inch log cabins. And I'm using our fabrics. And so I'm using all different low volume prints from our collections.
Oh, wow.
And then the whole quilt is going to be with Sherry and Chelsea fabrics.
That was the first thing I noticed when I walked in, was how adorable it was.
Oh, it's so cute. And we're actually taping this on July 2nd. So I haven't made my July 2nd block yet. But so next time I'll have
more to show.
Yeah.
That's going to be really fun to follow along with.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And I might just, because I was thinking 30, I'll make 31 of them, but I can take 30 of them and make a 5x6 little wall hanging.
Oh, yeah.
And then just put the final block on the back.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so I think that's what I'm going to do with them.
Also, with your organization of the rulers, so you had told me about this a week ago or so, a couple weeks ago. And she says, I organized all my rulers. And I got to thinking, well, how many rulers could you have? And she'll tell you more about it soon. But I was very impressed, and she actually had some rulers for me to try out because you had doubles of them.
I had doubles.
So that was really exciting for me to get some of those. So
good. Okay, should we go with the questions?
Yeah, well, first I want to talk about, is it okay if we talk about what's new a little bit? I know we talked about...
that was my what's new.
Okay. Well, just for me, what's new is we're expecting new fabric soon. I know we talked about that before. And new patterns that we're working on that we're really excited about. This year has gone by so quickly. It seems drawn out, but so quickly at the same time. And so we're working on new stuff that we can't wait to share with everyone soon.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I finished all of my cutting instructions for the new patterns yesterday. And that's always just such a relief to knock that off your list. And so I'm doing 4 new patterns, and then I have one that's going to a book with the new fabric and one that's going to a magazine with the new fabric. So I'll have 6 quilts to start sewing very soon. And
they're very pretty. I've seen the images of them so far.
And Chelsea's are really cute too.
Oh, thank you. Well, I obviously call you a lot, whether it's for motherly advice or a recipe or something. But yeah, she had told me, she said, yeah, I worked really hard and got all of my cutting instructions done, and I was really impressed. So it kind of got me on the ball with getting mine going. And I was like, oh, mom's already on the ball. I gotta catch up a little bit. So,
oh, well, good.
Yeah. All right. Should we go into some listener questions?
Yes.
Okay. So we had a question from a listener. Do you design quilts before the fabric or in the other order, or does it matter? That's a great question, because I would say both.
Right.
It just depends. If I have the fabric beforehand, for my All-American quilt, for example, it wasn't a market release quilt that I had. I just really wanted to make a quilt, using red, white, and blue fabrics. And so I already had the fabric for it, and then I designed the pattern. But whereas we have new fabric that's coming out, we're working on the patterns before we actually have the fabrics.
Right. Well, I feel like when I get an idea, I'll design it and kind of put it in my file.
Totally.
Or sometimes I won't even design it on the computer. I'll just make a note in a book like, oh, I want to do jelly roll quilt with this type of design. And I'll kind of put notes so that I'll be able to remember what I want to do. So I do have a list like that. And then sometimes when I have extra time, I'll just sit down, design them on the computer. And I try to have like a few just kind of in the queue that I could use for anything if I'm asked to do something by somebody. But then I feel like once we get the scans back, once we've picked the strike-offs that we're going to use.
And the scans are the digital images of the fabrics that we've chosen.
Right. So once I have those, then I will start to specifically design quilts for that collection. And sometimes I'll take something that I've already thought about and use it. But sometimes it really is inspired by the fabric.
It really does depend on the collection you're working with, because say we have a collection like Summer Sweet that has 9 or 10 different colors in it. The way you design is totally different. Whereas you have a collection like Harper's Garden that has maybe 6 different colors that you're working with. So it always depends. When you get the scans, and then you can digitally design kind of what you're thinking. So
yeah. And I know sometimes too, when you work with other people's fabric, in that situation, it kind of is the fabric that inspires the quilt. Because I'll see somebody's fabric and I'll think, oh, I could use that to do this.
Yeah. That just happened to me with 2 patterns I'm working on for fall. And they were very fabric line specific. So
right. Yeah. So that was a great question.
That was a great question.
The next question is a really great one too.
I love this question.
So I was so happy to get it. I actually think it was Jane in Iowa that asked me this one. Yes. And she's read my blog for a while and she emailed me this question. So
thank you, Jane.
Yes. So what do you like to do other than quilting? And we were really excited to get this question.
Because I really there's other things that I really, really enjoy doing with my family, with my kids. We live next to a lake and
Lake Mead.
Lake Mead.
Close.
Yeah, Lake Mead is very close. We love to spend time on the lake as a family. So that's kind of what we've been doing this summer since it has opened up recently, and so we've been able to go to the lake. And I love to just draw. I love to journal. Those are a few things.
Yeah. Let's see. So I really love to journal also, and I love to read. I read a lot of fiction when I was younger. I got an English degree, and so I feel like now I read less fiction and more nonfiction.
Yeah.
But I also like listening to podcasts. I just found, he just started it. One of my favorite nonfiction books is Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and he just started a podcast. And I've listened to 3 episodes already. The one with Rachel Hollis, the one with Drew and Linda of the Property Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
He and his wife did a great podcast. And then the third one I listened to was Ariana Huffington. And it was who started Huffington Post and has done lots of amazing things. She was really inspiring. So I've listened to, I think he has 5 episodes out, and I've listened to 3 of them. So those were really good.
I need to go check that out.
So, but yeah, I also like looking at cookbooks. I don't always cook everything in them, but I feel like that looking at cookbooks is a hobby.
Yeah.
So,
I have to say I love to read too. And I think, well, you know that I have always loved to read.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have a little bit less time to find time to read with kids at home. If I read, it's at night. So
right. I do like gardening too. We have this house that we bought. The front and side yards are done, so there are things to take care of that I'm having fun taking care of. And I have lots of plants in pots.
Your apricot tree.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
and we have apples now. And
yeah.
So, and then it's been fun to kind of imagine what we want to do with the backyard, and hopefully lots more plants.
Yeah.
And then we have a family of quail living in our backyard right now.
My goodness.
A mother and 14 little babies.
You guys.
They're so cute.
So I got here this morning and my mom and I were just talking before we were going to start filming the podcast. And all of a sudden she gets really, really quiet. And she's like, Chelsea, look out the window. We have a family of quail that live in our backyard. And she has 14 babies, and it's amazing. It literally was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
They're so tiny.
They're so tiny and so cute. And I thought it was so sweet because both of my parents are very, very excited about it. So we will be giving updates on the quail family for everyone. Well, I love quail just because when you see them cross a road,
they're all together.
They're all together, and you notice that the mom or the dad stays. They always keep the little baby quail protected.
Right.
A parent is in front of them and behind them. And so it was just really sweet. So more updates on the quail coming soon.
Yeah. Okay. So next question. Well, there was one, this will go really quick because we both use the same.
Couple quick fire questions.
Yeah. What type of batting do you use?
We use the same.
Yeah. Warm and white.
Warm and white.
So for almost everything, sometimes I feel like if I send something out to be custom quilted, and my quilter Val will sometimes add a layer of wool in.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Yeah, it's just, it kind of depends if the look that we're trying to get with that quilt.
Oh.
But other than that, everything is warm and white.
Yeah, same for me. I think it's great.
Okay.
Do you wash quilts before giving them as gifts?
I do not.
I do not either.
Sometimes if it's someone who I've never given a quilt to before, I will include a color catcher with some, and just explain to them that the first time they wash it, they might want to put that in the wash just in case. I've never had, knock on wood.
Yeah,
I've never had any bleeding
me neither.
Or fading with any of my quilts ever.
Yeah.
So,
but I know people have.
So I always sometimes I'll put 2 or 3 color catchers in the laundry with the quilt the first time I wash it.
Just by itself.
Right.
And if you haven't bought color catchers before, you can find them
just at the grocery store.
Any grocery store.
Yeah.
And it's just precautionary to me.
Right.
I do it because I want to just make sure. I've never had an issue with bleeding on quilts or anything. But it does give me peace of mind because I have gifted quilts before. And I just always give them little instructions and just say, hey, this is what you do if you're going to wash it. And so.
Yeah. And we never, also kind of on the same line or topic, we never wash our quilts before we go to market.
Never.
We like to have them that crisp finished look.
Yeah.
They hang better before they're washed.
Yeah.
I feel like I have taken a washed quilt to market before and it just didn't hang as well.
Yeah. And though I love that crinkly, softer, feel, especially if my kids have a quilt on their bed, The market quilts, no, yeah, they definitely hang better and flatter.
Right.
If you don't wash them before displaying them.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Right. How long have you been designing quilt patterns and fabric? So for me, it's the same for both. So about December will be 5 years of designing fabric and about 4 years of designing, well, three years of designing quilt patterns. But for you, that's different because you started designing quilt patterns before you started designing fabric.
Yeah, I started the blog in 2008, and I think I started doing my first patterns around 2011.
Yeah.
So about 9 years.
That's a long
for
time,
patterns.
though.
So
and you even called me the other day and you said, "Oh my goodness, I'm designing my 100th pattern."
Not including anything that was ever in a book or magazine.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So yeah, because we number the
new
quilt patterns, and so
you give them a stock number,
right? And when I was getting all that information with the barcode and everything for the new pattern cover, I realized, wow,
that's a lot.
So
it's a lot of quilts you've designed.
So okay, moving on to the next set of questions.
Yeah. So these are podcast questions from the YouTube channel. Is that right? Or just
I think
from everywhere? Yeah,
I think
from the YouTube channel.
Okay, so the first one is, why do you have to take 3 or so different measurements of the quilt top to do the inner border and outer border? Is the first question. And do you always add the side borders and then the top and bottom borders in that order? Is that just one of those unwritten rules? So first of all, I feel like the 3 measurement, I was taught that many years ago, and that you measure before you add the border, you measure one side and you measure down the center and you measure the other side, and hopefully they all come out the same. And then that's the measurement that you use when you start planning on your borders. But if they're different, I was always taught that you should kind of take an average. So if they're 1/2 inch off, maybe you're going to make it 1/8 of an inch smaller. But I actually don't really do that anymore. I measure the 2 sides, and hopefully they're the same. They usually are. And I make my border fabric a little bit longer, and I put a pin in both of the border pieces at the measurement that I'm going to use. And I leave those extra tails on, and then I pin. Then I sew, then I cut it and trim it after.
Yeah. See, that's what I do. I don't worry about the measuring at all. I sew them on, and I trim the excess. Yeah. And they come out great every single time.
Yeah. I do measure.
Yeah.
And put the pin in every time.
Yeah. And I do pin. Yeah. I will add that. I do pin them.
Yeah.
So they are the same. Both sides are the exact same to match up with the sides of the quilt. But yeah, I leave that excess because sometimes tension from sewing and everything. So
yeah, I leave it just because I feel like it's easier to square it up after.
Yeah.
So, and then the second part of the question, do you always add side borders, then the top and bottom? Normally I do add them, unless if it's a smaller quilt, and if I can get the top and bottom border from one cut of fabric, say it's 40 inches wide, I'm going to put that top border and the bottom border on first, because I don't want to seam 1/2 inch away from the edge.
Yeah.
Because I've added the side borders so it just kind of depends on the math, but generally I will put the side borders on first.
Yeah. See, that's how I do. That's how you taught me.
So
always side, then top and bottom. But I do see where you're coming from doing it the other way if you're working on
because it just project. I don't know I can't think right now the math exactly, but if I'm going to have a seam 1/2 inch away, and I can get rid of that seam by adding that top and bottom border first, then that's what I would do. So
okay, so we had a question from Melissa. Can you describe how you select fabrics for scrappy quilts so they look cohesive? That was the first question. And then it seems that many people use pre-cuts or a specific fabric line or two. I have a huge fabric stash collected over many years. So you wanted to talk about this one a little bit. I love scrappy quilts, by the way. I feel like I just kind of grab what I think I want in there, a good mix. And
I feel like you're really good at scrappy quilts.
Thank you.
I don't know if I've ever told her this, but she made some scrappy quilts really early on in her quilting before she was designing patterns. And I just really thought that the way that Chelsea was putting the scrap quilts together, I knew she was going to be a good quilter, because I feel like that came kind of instinctually to you, or naturally, whatever the word is. And so, yeah, I feel like some people are definitely blessed to be able to just do that. And I feel like Chelsea's one of those people. But I always tell my students, I believe anyone can learn that too. I don't like it when people say, oh, I can never do that. Like, I just feel like anyone can learn how to do anything.
Yeah.
And I feel like selecting fabrics for scrap quilts so they look cohesive it's a talent that you might be born with, but I feel like it's also a skill that you can develop.
That you can acquire, yeah.
So, and one of the best ways I feel like is to take pictures. Put your fabrics on a table or on the ground, or try to put a white background underneath them, the back of a quilt or a sheet, and take a picture and look at the mix of fabrics. And I feel like for me, having been blogging so long and taking pictures, I feel like that really helped me because I was constantly taking pictures of what I was working on to share. And I feel like that kind of helped me develop that cohesive look. And in fact, I'm in my block of the month that I'm doing, I noticed when taking pictures last month that I hadn't used enough of the color, I hadn't used enough red fabrics.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to make sure that I put some red fabrics in those blocks. So I feel like taking pictures is really good. Also stepping away like 9 or 10 feet and looking at the fabrics. You get a different view than when you're right on top of them.
Yeah.
So
I have done that since I started making quilts, and it is really helpful when you can like what I do is like you said, you want kind of a neutral background so nothing is distracting, and I lay everything out, and then I get on top of like a chair or a cabinet and I take a picture from way, up above the quilt or far away so that I can get a feel for kind of what's going on. But Mom, you're making me blush saying you think I make cute scrappy quilts. I think I did make a log cabin quilt that I've shared on my Instagram, and it is a really fun scrappy quilt. I'll have to bring that quilt to share more about on the podcast.
Yeah. And then another thing Melissa said, it seems that many people use pre-cuts or a specific fabric line or two. And I feel like that is the benefit of buying a collection.
Yes.
Is because you can often achieve a really scrappy look within one collection.
Yeah.
Or just add something else to it. And then Joanna Figueroa has something that she taught me was kind of the 80-20 principle, where you take 80% of your fabrics from one collection, and then you add in 20% from other collections, and that will give you the scrappy look.
I love that.
So I learned that from Joanna, and she
always has great tips and tricks.
Yeah, and then the other thing, if you have a huge fabric stash and you want to start using it, I feel like you just have to go for it. You just have to untie these bundles and get those scraps out of the drawers.
Which I will note, it's very hard to unbundle something for me. It's very, very hard, but yeah.
Oh, I should say one more thing. I have a couple blog posts on this that we'll link in the show notes, but another thing that you can do is to make a scrap quilt from one designer's fabric. And so a lot of times their collections will go together.
Yeah.
And that will help you as you practice.
You have a couple quilts.
Yeah.
Is that one behind you?
Oh, that's a true scrap quilt.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the log cabin.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing is do a holiday scrap quilt, like a Christmas
Yes.
scrap quilt or a 4th of July scrap quilt.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've made a few quilts that I'll mix. We talked about this in the last podcast. Mix reds and greens from various designers' lines, red, whites, and blues. They always turn out. It's pretty. You don't always have to stay matchy. Like, it's very pretty to have different variations of blues and reds. They work together. They will once the whole quilt comes together.
Right.
Okay, so we had a question from Lindsay, and she was wondering if we could just dive in a little bit more into the creative process, because I had said, you know, when I'm designing a collection, I'm very inspired by nature. And so I'm just going to go a little bit more into that. I would say typically it's a lot of doodling starting out, looking like I may see different flowers, and maybe I want to draw a rose or a dandelion, but I draw it multiple different ways until I just feel like it looks how I want it to look. And it's just a lot of time spent drawing and a lot of time tweaking things on the computer is what it is for me. So yes, I am inspired by nature, but then I'll go in and I'll draw and I'll sketch and then work with it on the computer for hours before, you know, it really comes together how I want it. She also asked, how do you know when you feel you have the right number of colors in a small scale print? And so if you're looking at a smaller scale flower, I honestly don't like it to be very distracting. Mm-hmm. I like maybe 2 different colors in a smaller floral, because
or maybe 3, like right
or
here.
maybe 3. Yeah, because it can become very distracting and hard to see when you're designing with it. So I typically don't put a lot of colors in a smaller floral, whereas a larger floral, I'm going to put more colors in it because it's very big and bold. And
or even like this medium floral,
the medium florals
has more
work.
Colors than the small scale.
And you'll notice like all of these flowers are different, but they're still cohesive. Like they still work together. As far as colors, that's something we talk about a lot. It feels right. We mess around with different colors, and sometimes we start with more colors than we end up with in the collection.
Right.
And that really depends on when we get our strike-offs. Sometimes we omit a color because it just we don't like it as much when we see it, you know.
Right.
And it would still work, but maybe overall it's not what we need in the collection that time. So it just varies from line to line, I would say.
Right. And I feel like we've learned to kind of request more colors than maybe we know we'll be using, just in case. And once in a while, as with Summer Sweet, I don't think we got rid of any. Yeah, they all worked. And so
Summer Sweet was a great collaboration, something we worked on where we really went for it and used a lot of different colors. We added new colors, which at first was kind of like, that can be a little scary, but no, it was so fun to change it up and do something different. And it just depends. It worked for that line really well to have more colors in it. So, how many creative sessions do you think it takes to come up with a single pattern? And I think she's talking about like the design patterns.
Yeah, I didn't know if she was talking about fabric patterns or quilt patterns.
Well, I'll touch on both just really quickly because I mean, I would say I don't really come over to mom's house with like this with small stuff. Like we can text and email about that and send each other images through we have a shared Dropbox. It works great for us, even though we're 10 minutes away. Yeah. You know, I have kids, she's working. Once I have something very final, like in the final stages of computer work, then we get together and we have like, you know, I'll set up an entire presentation and we'll both thoroughly go over it and discuss it. And so, but as far as quilt patterns, we do the same thing. We have a shared Dropbox. I even was asking her about a new quilt I designed the other day, and we don't want to have the same quilt patterns in one line or something too similar, because we want to be able to show a lot of different things with one fabric collection. So the shared Dropbox helps.
That's been really good.
It's been really good. And I see like when you add something new, and I'm like, oh, Mom added something new into the drop today to look at. So
yeah, I also think we do probably meet 2 or 3 times.
We do overall.
After you've done the drawings and the digital work.
Yeah.
I feel like we do. It's 2 or 3 times. And then, that progresses even more when we have the strike off.
Yeah.
So,
and it's so great. Like, I feel so blessed because we do live so close. So I'll be at the house anyways. Or, my kids, will want to see their grandparents. And so when we're there, we kind of have like a little 5-minute meeting or, something to discuss things that we're working on. So,
and I just feel like it's a real blessing to be able to bounce ideas off one another. I know there's
for sure. Yeah.
So many designers who do it so successfully and wonderfully on their own, but I just can't even imagine having to do it by myself. Yeah. I love being able to say, what do you think about this?
Yeah. People ask me all the time. They're like, how is it working with your mom? I love it. I think it's great to have another person in all this with me. And I for us, I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, I'm so inspired by our friends who do it by themselves. That's, it's
a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. Okay, we just have 2 more questions.
Yeah. From Maria, how do you improve at keeping your blocks to the correct size?
And I feel like that just all boils down to the 1/4 inch seam allowance.
Totally.
I really feel like that is the number one thing you need to work on if you're a newer or beginner, intermediate quilter. Just keep that. That being said, the more pieces there are in a block, the more likely it is that it'll be off.
Yeah.
So you just have to just really be diligent if there are a lot of pieces in the block. Maybe beginners should really start with more simple patterns. And once they can make a simple quilt accurately, then move to an intermediate quilt.
Your pressing matters like so much.
Pressing is very important.
Good pressing.
Right.
I also have to say, when I first started quilting, I called you a lot. I still call you a lot. But my mom, with our Desert Bloom collection, I had just started getting more confident. And you had a jelly roll pattern. Well, it was a layer cake pattern, I think. And you were like, well, how about you make this in the Desert Bloom collection, and then we could just have it in the booth at Market. And I made it, and I called her very frustrated. I said, Mom, something's wrong. Like, something is going on with this. And I had been sewing for how long, I don't know, with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And you were like, oh my goodness. And so the whole quilt, like, I said, Mom, your block, this is wrong. And she said, no, it's not. So I quickly changed my seam allowance, and I'm good now, but it does matter. So lots of learning.
Yeah. Yeah, just keep trying. I just feel like it doesn't. I have some quilts from when I first started that I'm just grateful that my quilter just kindly quilted them and gave them back to me. And
I have a whole box of tops I could show you in my closet that aren't quilted yet.
Okay, and the last quilting question that we have today is a really fun one. And it's from Suzanne. What is a quilt pattern, or quilting sewing project you haven't made yet but would really like to? And we both were excited about this question immediately.
I knew mine right away.
We both knew ours right away. I'm excited. And we haven't talked. So
we haven't talked.
She doesn't know what I'm going to say, and I don't know what she's going to say. But mine is a double wedding ring quilt.
Oh.
And I started one a few years ago, and then, I don't know, I wasn't happy with my fabric. I still have it in a box. It's probably my only and one of... Well, I probably have 5 or fewer unfinished projects, and this is one of them. And I think I didn't like what I had decided to do where the rings come together. But I am going to make a double wedding ring quilt one of these days. And I think I'm going to do it with our fabrics.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to my, do the low volumes.
It would be so pretty.
So that's my project.
Okay, so mine is actually one of your patterns.
Oh.
And I actually recently posted about it in Instagram. Your Mahalo quilt pattern. And I don't know if you've heard me say this. So she has a pattern called Mahalo, and it's beautiful. And you made it originally with our Desert Bloom collection.
Right.
And I am very intimidated by curves and anything like a new technique, but I want to make that quilt so badly in all of our collections someday.
Oh, yeah.
And I could even start now and just keep adding.
Start making blocks.
Yeah, start making blocks and adding future collections into it, because I feel like it's something I want to spend some time on and not rush, because it's a new technique for me.
Right.
But it does use curves. And so that was,
Yeah.
and I watched her make it. And so it's a lot of work to make that. But so the Mahalo quilt pattern is something I hands down have always said I wanted to make.
Oh, and I'm excited that you said that, because
Yeah.
it would be so cool if Chelsea made it, because I actually made it because my great-great-grandmother had made that quilt.
Yes.
Back in the early 1930s, I'm guessing, from the fabrics. And well, I believe she passed away in 1936.
Yeah.
I have to look that up, but so I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Then there would be 3 members of our family
yeah.
who had made that same quilt pattern.
Yeah.
That would be cool. All
All right. So I think, do you have a tip of the day for us?
Tip of the day. I already kind of talked about
Oh,
it.
okay.
But I was just going to mention, for my tip of the day, mention that Essentialism podcast.
Oh, okay.
That I talked
Yeah.
about earlier.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, it just kind of came up naturally in the conversation
Yeah.
before. But
All right.
I've learned a lot from that. And then one other question we got was to please fill you in at the end of each podcast about when our next podcast is going
Yes.
to air. And so that will be Monday, July 20th will be our next podcast. We're doing the first and third Mondays of each month. And then if there's a 5th Monday, we're throwing in a bonus episode.
Which we do have this month. So we will have a bonus episode.
So, June had 3. Yeah, June had 3.
Yes.
And then it'll be the first and third Monday that you can plan on. So, yes. So after today, we'll be back on July 20th.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening in, and be sure to leave us a comment or a question.
Yes, we would love the feedback and the reviews if you're listening on a podcast platform.
Yeah, Spotify, Apple, Google. We'll be on YouTube with video. So
right, and continue to give us your questions. They were fabulous.
Yes.
So, and we will link everything in the show notes post on my blog. It will be there today.
All right. Hope to see you next time.
Thanks so much
for stopping by.